Welcome in the NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. The madness is underway and will continue. We've got NCAA tournament coming up next week, and we also have conference tournament action. The week rolls on here on SportsGrid. Plenty of previews here coming up at 12:12. Rob Donaldson will be in the house to break it all down for you. Get ready for the weekend. ACC, SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, all of the championships coming up this week. Tom Vecchio is going to hit us up here. We'll talk some baseball. World Baseball Classic, of course, now headed to the quarterfinals. Maybe get into some football as well. And then we got Vinny Iyer, courtesy of Sporting News, as we always do, to talk about free agency in the National Football League, which seems to be coming to the end here. Of course, it opens up, and then all of a sudden everybody signs, but we'll see if things happen. We'll bring them to you. Okay. First and foremost, we've got tip-offs here in college basketball, so let's get to it. In the Big Ten, we've got Iowa State taking on Ohio State. OSU, a 1.5-point favorite. Over in the ACC, Virginia expected to make some noise in the ACC tournament. We'll see what they look like today when they take on NC State. And then in the Big East, we've got a tip-off coming here with St. John's and, of course, Coach Rick Pitino. Big favorites in the Big East over Providence. Total of 158.5. As I mentioned, lock in the game time decisions in Game Live. All of our programming that we have here on SportsGrid this month catered toward the NCAA tournament. So make sure you tune in there. Okay, so Team USA got a little bit of a bailout. I think that's probably fair to say, right? Italy beat Mexico, the final 9-1. And so now Italy moves over to Pool B, going 4-0. They were great. Vinny Pasquantino hit 3 home runs in the win yesterday. Aaron Nola did his best to shut down the other side. 5 innings pitched, no earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. So Italy gets Puerto Rico coming up on Saturday. I believe that's in the Houston side of the bracket. And then the semifinals and finals are in Miami. But first and foremost, let's talk some Vinny Pasquantino from Team Italy hitting 3 home runs yesterday. What an incredible feat.
Vinny, Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in a World Series game, and he becomes known as Mr. October.
Mr. March?
Some might call you Mr. March. You know,
No. And this is like the regular season of the tournament too. So it's just a good night. That's it. This will be forgotten very soon. So, but it's, anytime you can just say Reggie Jackson's name to me is cool. But it's special. I wasn't really thinking about it. Just, honestly, I was really happy with the 2-2 take I had that at bat. I had been chasing quite a bit to the point that, I wanted to just cry. It's just like, hey, stop chasing balls. Like, just take balls. And I took that pitch, and I think I was about as happy as I could be. So I was happy with that. And then obviously the result that followed was cool. So it was a good night, but, we got to flip the page and get to Saturday.
And so the World Baseball Classic, which has obviously been tremendous, rolls on this weekend. And then into next week, it will be Korea versus the Dominican Republic in Miami on Friday. That's where it will get started. We've got Friday, USA taking on Canada. Also, that's in the Houston bracket. If the USA wins, they move on to the semis in Miami. Puerto Rico takes on Italy. They're heavily favored Saturday against Houston. And then the big showdown is Saturday night in Miami with Shohei Ohtani, who has arrived to Miami at Lone Depot Park. They're working out right now as we speak. They will take on Venezuela, a very rare 9 p.m. start game, by the way, to accommodate everybody, it seems like, watching in that game, but that's what you do. USA, by the way, big favorites coming up on Saturday, but I guess you never know, right? USA minus 880 on the money line, Canada plus 580 as well. All right, end of the line here for the owner of the New York Giants, although it does seem like the team will be kept in the family. Steve Tisch, who is the co-owner of the Giants, and his 2 siblings are reportedly planning to give up control stake of the team and transfer ownership to his children. The news comes with a lot of different reports about his personal or individual relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And, certainly he has claimed that he had never visited Jeffrey Epstein or anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein. But this certainly is a signal for the end of Tisch at least owning the team. But remember, it's in the kids' names, and it will turn over to the kids, so still a lot of involvement there. Meanwhile, the NIL Go platform is the compliance system that has a delay run by the College Sports Commission that reviews names, images, and likeness. Since launching in June, the CSC has approved $165 million worth of deals, and as of right now, they're trying to figure out how to get this moving forward, but indeed, the NIL system is going through some major delays here. So the Wild Wild West does continue. All right, in college basketball, before we get to some of the results, the biggest news of the day yesterday is after 11 years, Bob Hurley is out as Arizona State's head coach. 11-year tenure coming to an end, and had a really good run, 185 and 167. They said that his contract will not be renewed. On the court yesterday in the Big 12, not much of a matchup between Iowa State and Arizona State. 91-42 as ISU not only wins, but they cover that 13.5 points very easily. Joshua Jefferson had 20 points and 12 rebounds in the win. Here's TJ Olsberger and inevitably the final press conference for Hurley after the loss.
Coach Otzelberger here along with Joshua Jefferson and Blake Buchanan. Coach, if you could start us off with some general comments about the game.
Yeah, I think our guys came out with a great level of energy and intensity from the start. We knew it was going to be important to try to speed them up and score off of our defense, and our guys did a great job there. We're always at our best when we're doing that. Same on the glass. Second chance points, I think we're 17-2. Another area we're always at our best when we're doing that, and then loved how we shared the basketball. So overall, great team win for us, and really proud of our guys.
We just didn't come out great, obviously, to start. We weren't physical enough in the early stages of the game. They really swarmed us. We got the ball, in some really tough areas of the floor against a really good defensive team, and you just can't afford to do that. We never really gave ourselves a chance, and we this matchup obviously is not a good one for us because we've been one of the best teams in the Big 12 at taking care of the ball, minus obviously Saturday, and then this game. The physicality of their team is different than I've ever seen, and they're really on a string on defense. They rotate for each other. They do a very good job at that end of the floor, and we had a hard time dealing with it.
Also in the ACC, a big resume builder for Louisville as they end up winning by a final of 62-58, and they end up taking the victory as it was a very big win for them. There's no question at this point that Louisville still needs some help, but they do end up winning, and they do not cover the spread. Ryan Conwell had 16 points. Here's Pat Kelsey after the victory.
Yeah, we got a bunch of vets. We got one of the oldest, most mature teams in the country, and they've been through so many situations throughout the course of their career. They've logged so many minutes. They've played in big games. Example is late in the game when it was kind of back-to-back timeouts called. And so we were in the first timeout. We're talking about strategy. We're talking about what we're doing. And then they went to go back on the floor, and they called another 30-second timeout. So I went to kind of, all right, come back over. I was going to talk to them, and Ryan and Javon, we got a team full of leaders. Those guys were like, we got it. And they kind of got in their own little circle, and they talked through stuff. And I was like, great. When it's like that, it's player-led, you have something special.
Also, LSU falls to Kentucky yesterday, so the Wildcats move on 87-82. All right, new teams in the NCAA tournament. We're going to get a lot of these this week. I can't wait, by the way, to Selection Sunday. We got Lehigh. Yeah, Lehigh's getting in the NCAA tournament. They punched their ticket as well as McNeese and Idaho, so they joined Gonzaga, of course, who won the West Coast Conference yet again, Wright State, Siena, Hofstra, Long Island University, Tennessee State, Northern Iowa, High Point, Queens, North Dakota State, Troy, and Furman. I don't have that memorized. Looking at that on the screen, just being honest. All right, National Football League. It's quiet right now, but Kyler Murray could sign with the Vikings today. It looks like he's finally gotten his release and can head to greener pastures. Maybe he'll get a chance to start there. Bradley Chubb signed a mega deal, 3 years, $43.5 million, as Chubb is now moving on to the Bills. We'll be right back. March Madness continues. Our conversation today is with Rob Donaldson, getting ahead of some of the games tomorrow, tonight, and of course in the future. But we've got games to recap first. So let's take care of that. Rob, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. One of the top teams in the country, surging toward the finish here. 7th ranked Iowa State absolutely destroys Texas Tech yesterday. Destroys Arizona State yesterday. They play Texas Tech today. I'll get this right eventually. 5.5-point favorites. I was more impressed with the Cyclones than any other team that I've seen play this week. I mean, I don't think it cost Bobby Hurley his job. I think he was going to get let go anyway, but they win by almost 50 yesterday, and now they take on the Red Raiders today. What do you make of the matchup?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this Iowa State team, certainly there's ways you can poke holes in them in terms of the long-term vision, in terms of a national championship picture. But when it comes to this tournament, with it being in KC, just 2.5 hours away from Ames, Iowa, and that Des Moines area, this has really been Hilton South over the last decade, even going back to when Fred Hoiberg was in the building. And because of that, they really have a home court edge. They are going to have the crowd here hand over fist over Texas Tech. And I also think when you're looking at Iowa State and just how they kind of perform in this type of setting, this is, I think, what they're built for, is just kind of these one-off games where it's win or go home. Last year, they had a lot of injuries and off-the-court drama that really just kind of made them for an easy exit in this tournament. But this next year, and with the team they currently have right now, I think they're actually poised to win this entire thing.
Let's preview an SEC game. We got Kentucky taking on Missouri. It's a very tight line here, as you could see. And I would say this about the Tigers. I thought a week ago that they'd be a bigger favorite in their game and also have a chance maybe to even take a run at the SEC. But I think, Rob, you can make the case, I don't know if this is fair, that they're playing their worst basketball maybe of the season going into this game against Kentucky today.
Yeah, I think you're looking at two teams who actually found themselves in a very similar position, right? Where the Kentucky narrative is, hey, they shouldn't have ran Coach Cal out the building. They paid all this money for a $20 million roster, and they can barely get to 20 wins. That's kind of what's being circulated on social media. The players are certainly hearing that as well. And I don't think it matters. I think Kentucky is kind of just a brand, a shell of itself at this certain point. And although Mizzou is not playing great ball, and maybe, that kind of layoff period of not having that ramp up game could affect them today, I certainly don't want to be back in that Kentucky side. And so if you are finding an angle in this game, I'm just going to go ahead and roll with the Tigers here.
BYU takes on Houston. This is the 10 seed in the conference versus the 2 seed. Houston has already beaten BYU this season. It wasn't a blowout by any stretch, and that's kind of what the indication here. The line is 10.5. I mean, Houston is definitely the better team, but are they 10.5 points better?
Well, it's interesting because BYU has kind of dressed up the last 2 games against West Virginia and Kansas State, but they've not been playing good ball. And ever since Richie Saunders kind of exited this lineup with an injury, they've been all over the place. They've picked up some upsets. They've picked up some really bad looking losses. And I don't really know how to kind of peg or pinpoint this BYU team, but I certainly don't want to back them. I think this line is actually indicative of it being a true blowout. And so I'm looking at that Houston side. And although it's a crazy big number for a team that does play that more defensive style, I am willing to kind of go ahead and lay it here.
All right. So you like a couple of big favorites here. Well, not big favorites, but you like Iowa State -5.5. You like Houston, the Cougars -8.5 as well. But there is a couple of dogs on your card today, very specifically Washington and UNLV, both catching big points. Let's start off with the Huskies.
Yeah, Washington is a team, if you believe in that kind of ramp up period, and the Big Ten has seen this over the years where teams make the run kind of out of those depths. And Washington's been playing good ball really down the stretch, and just in general, since kind of the middle part of Big Ten play, hasn't always resulted in wins, but they've been very, very competitive. And I do feel like when you're looking at this game going up against the Badgers, catching more than 2 full possessions, that's one that I'm willing to take a shot on, because Wisconsin is a very streaky team, very up and down, very volatile. And if Washington can just kind of continue that momentum that they have going now, I think we have a ball game wire to wire, and that's going to fit me within that range.
Now, big game coming up for the Runnin' Rebels. They're taking on the number 1 seed in the conference. This should be the showdown maybe of the day, 3 p.m. Eastern, as they look to take down Utah State. UNLV getting 7.5 points in this one. Who do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, obviously, the thing with UNLV is this is going to be in Las Vegas, and although their fan contingent's probably going to be dwarfed by Utah State, even with that being the case, it doesn't matter because I think UNLV, when you look at their dynamic, they could get blown out by 40 in this game. It wouldn't surprise me if this ends up being 65-100, but they have a puncher's chance, UNLV, in terms of having the best scorer in this conference tournament field. And I do feel like this is kind of an indicative line in the reverse direction where it feels a little bit short. It almost kind of feels like people are trying to get baited into taking their laying the points with Utah State, and UNLV has the upside to actually win this game outright. Again, it's just kind of that puncher's chance opportunity with the best player or best scorer in this conference, but I'm willing to take that chance, especially with this type of number.
Rob, let's do one more game if we can here. Tulane beat the struggling Memphis Tigers. I don't know where that program is headed, by the way. They won that game easily. Tulane picked up their 18th win of the season. They take on Charlotte today. This is supposed to be one of the tighter games on the day today. Do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, we've seen Tulane really perform well against the middle and bottom half of the American this year when they've had to play up against the Tulsas and the USFs of the world. That's kind of where they falter. But I think Ron Hunter is going to find a way to get this thing done and kind of push his. We'll see what happens with Ron Hunter and Tulane, by the way, but I think they're going to get it done today and advance that tenure out a little bit further. And ultimately, I think Tulane maybe is not long for this conference, but in a vacuum against Charlotte on a neutral, I do like their chances today.
All right, finally, to win it all, the national championship. Rob, I don't know who you liked before this week began, and I don't know if it's changed at all. We haven't seen the big dogs play yet, even, so I think we're okay here. Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Florida, those are the big favorites, followed by Houston, and then a bunch of 20-1s there, as you could see on the board.
Yeah, I'm kind of going a little bit chalk where I am going to be taking a shot at Michigan. I'm also going to be taking a shot at UConn. I think if both of those teams are playing at their peak, they can get it done. And the value spot is more so with UConn for me, but that's where I'm aligned on the national championship.
All right, Rob. Thanks again. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Some breaking news, by the way, from the PGA Tour as the Players' Championship at TBC Sawgrass has already teed off this morning, but one player will not. One of the favorites to win it all, Colin Morikawa, has withdrawn from the Players. He was 16-1 over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and we talked about this yesterday here on the show as maybe one of the favorites to win. A lot of folks thought he had a good shot. Morikawa out of the Players' Championship. Those of you who were betting on that, you have tickets or looking to even bet it, maybe in play, something along those lines, find somebody else, because Morikawa, I'm assuming you'll get your money back. All right, NBA last night. Rockets fans probably want their money back from watching that game last night on TV. 129-93. Wow, the Nuggets just absolutely blew the doors off Houston. The Nuggets win and cover as 6.5-point favorites. Jokic, another triple-double. 13 points, 12 rebounds, and 13 assists. And Jamal Murray had 30 points. Quiet night for Kevin Durant. It happens in the NBA. So a win for Denver yesterday. Also, the Orlando Magic took care of business against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Magic win outright. They were 3.5-point dogs. Why? Maybe the best game of the season for Desmond Bane, who had 38 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists for Orlando. Paolo Banchero had 25. On the other side, it was James Harden with 30 points as well. Speaking of big games last night in the NBA, how about Kawhi Leonard for the Los Angeles Clippers? I've said there's going to be a 300-point game in the NBA, right? Like, this is coming. Clippers 153, Timberwolves 128 yesterday. Clips were 1.5-point favorites, but Kawhi had 45 points to go along with 5 rebounds and 5 assists. Anthony Edwards had 36 points in the loss. Meanwhile, the Knicks, they got an easy one yesterday because they faced Utah. 134-117 was the final there. Knicks win and cover as 13.5-point road favorites. Jalen Brunson had 28 points, and Bryce Sensabaugh in the loss had 29. Meanwhile, the Pelicans beat the Raptors in New Orleans. They win outright. They were 2.5-point dogs because Toronto's had a nice season. New Orleans not as much. Trey Murphy had 27. DeJounte Murray had 27. Emmanuel Quickley had 25 points in the game last night. Over to the World Baseball Classic. In case you missed it, Team Italy is moving on. They go 4-0, Espresso cupping their way all the way to the quarterfinals, which they will get started tomorrow night. Vinny Pasquantino, who we'll hear from in a second, had 9 runs, 3 home runs yesterday from Vinny Pasquantino. Here he is on the 3 home run effort that puts Team Italy into the quarters.
Vinny, Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in a World Series game, and he becomes known as Mr. October.
Mr. March?
Some might call you Mr. March. You know,
no. And this is like the regular season of the tournament too. So it's just a good night. That's it. This will be forgotten very soon. So, but it's, anytime you can just say Reggie Jackson's name to me is cool. But it's special. I wasn't really thinking about it. Just, honestly, I was really happy with the 2-2 take I had that at bat. I had been chasing quite a bit to the point that, I wanted to just cry. It's just like, hey, stop chasing balls. Like, just take balls. And I took that pitch, and I think I was about as happy as I could be. So I was happy with that. And then obviously the result that followed was cool. So it was a good night, but, we got to flip the page and get to Saturday.
All right. Meanwhile, over to the National Football League, the story that just keeps going all week long has been the non-trade between the Ravens and Las Vegas Raiders with Max Crosby. Crosby is headed back to Las Vegas, as many of you know, as the Ravens rescinded their deal and then moved on to sign Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year contract worth $115 million. And naturally, when a deal like this is done or not done, you're going to get talk from the general manager. So Eric DeCosta, the GM of the Ravens, met with the media yesterday and essentially said that he had some buyer's remorse on the deal and that kind of just felt, I guess, iffy about the physical. And basically, there is no deal between the Ravens and the Raiders. All right. Don't forget to download the SportsGrid app. You can for iOS and Android. Track all your picks via the SportsGrid app just by taking out your phone and scanning that QR code right there. If you're betting on the NCAA tournament and you're tracking your picks, that's the best way to do it. And you can also stream our programming 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. It is the SportsGrid app, again, available for both iOS and Android. Make sure you download it now. Just scan that QR code. All right, coming up next, Vinny Iyer is with us from Sporting News. We will break down the Hendrickson signing, Kenneth Walker, and all the other NFL free agency news and notes when we return next year on NewsWire. Vinny Iyer from Sporting News up next. Don't go away. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Tom Vecchio is with us. You can catch him here appearing throughout the week on SportsGrid and also weekends on Pro Baseball Today and a lot of the other shows that you watch here weekly on our programming. And Tom is with us now to go over the very latest of the World Baseball Classic and a whole lot more. Tom, thanks for coming on the show. Great to catch up with you. Let's catch up with the WBC. They take a day off today, so that's nice. We get to kind of take a breather before the big weekend. And next week, Italy takes out Mexico. They've had the best WBC. I mean, maybe even you could say better than the Dominican Republic. What a shocker. How great that they have played. Vinny Pasquantino's putting together an epic performance in the World Baseball Classic. I guess the question for you, Tom, is that can Italy keep this going in any way now that the competition is going to get a lot stiffer?
You know, I think they can. You know, the matchup against Puerto Rico, at least from an odds perspective, is a bit of a coin flip. It's just, you know, pick the side that you like. Neither team's a super heavy favorite. Obviously, Puerto Rico has put together also a pretty solid start to the WBC. They have a good roster. You know, they are coming in with a ton of momentum. And, you know, to a certain point, I don't want to say that they have home field because they're not going to be in Miami, but it's a really good spot for Puerto Rico. I like their roster top to bottom. The issue I have with Italy is, you know, what we saw, you know, everyone pointed out like, oh, the top of their roster didn't produce any runs, and yet it all came from the bottom. What happens if the bottom of the roster actually doesn't show up and the top still struggles? How does that game play out for Italy at that point? Where will they be getting production when it's all said and done?
The Dominican Republic, after last night's win, have moved up to plus 240. We'll get to the odds in the WBC. They've looked as good as any team right now in the World Baseball Classic. They beat Venezuela, who, you know, certainly is formidable at this point. But the way that the DR is playing, Tom, I'd be very surprised if they didn't give. I think is it Japan, right? They play Saturday. I think they're going to give them all they
Korea.
can handle. Oh, is it Korea? Okay.
Korea to start. And yeah, Dominican Republic, arguably the second best team in this entire tournament, at least coming into. A lot of people are looking at USA, and then Japan as like a two-way, Dominican Republic as like a 2B. But ultimately, that lineup's unbelievable. Like, there's not enough that can be said about that lineup. And really, once they get the ball rolling, so to speak, there's no pitching staff that can navigate that type of lineup when you have those type of hitters back to back to back. So they obviously have a very I don't want to say clear path forward, but given the fact that they're on the same side of the bracket as Team USA, I'm expecting it's going to be Logan Webb for Team USA in the first round, which means Dominican Republic could be going up against Paul Skeens if USA were to win, which presents the toughest matchup that they face. But if there's any lineup that can take him down, it's them.
Without a doubt. All right, so USA takes on Canada. I'm really actually stunned that USA is still such a big favorite to win the WBC and such a big favorite over Canada. I almost feel like no one is watching these games here and the results. And this has nothing to do with everything else that's gone on the side notes with Team USA. I don't know. Like, I think if they get through this one, they get Skeens over the weekend. And that's obviously going to make them a huge favorite. But, I mean, I think Canada has a shot in this game, Tom. I do.
They do, and this is going to be a situation where I think they're going to have to deploy really a complement of pitchers. Mike Soroka started in game one for Canada. We know he can be out there. They got some work from Tyone. They got some work from James Paxton, a name that MLB fans would recognize from a couple years back when he was truly great. I think that's what's going to have to be. It's going to have the combination of those pitchers who do have some success against these hitters in the Team USA lineup. Obviously, it's going back over a number of years. But to your point, if you were to give me an option right now, Team USA or the field, I would 100% take the field. USA has struggled. The power has come through at times, but the consistency hasn't been there for them. If it's not going to be Logan Webb showing up in 4+ innings for them, where do we get? Because they three pitchers, I should say, removed off the roster. They added 3 more pitchers today, 3 relievers. So there's just a lot going up and down. We don't know who's in, who's out, how long. It's all over the place.
All right, so have you changed your opinion? I know we just showed the board, but let's bring it back up for the odds to win the World Baseball Classic. The big shift is obviously the Dominican Republic. They've gone now from about 4-1 to plus 240. Everyone else has remained the same. Italy, of course, now a little bit more of an option here at 20-1 as well, but I don't think a lot of folks think that they could win the whole thing.
Yeah, I would say Japan's the bet to make at this point. Like, they are better than Venezuela. I think Venezuela is absolutely a good team. I talked about picking them to win their pool over the Dominican Republic. That didn't come through, but I think Japan's better than Venezuela. That's pretty easy to say. But then they're absolutely better than Puerto Rico or Italy. Just the talent that they have, Japan has on. So if you get them heading into the finals against Dominican Republic or USA, presumably, you're going to have Japan at a great price, and it leaves you a potential to hedge out at that point.
And if they do win, then I would assume Shohei Ohtani would be the MVP. So this is the very best odds you will get on that. And if you think about it, Japan is plus 420 to win the WBC, and Ohtani is plus 550. That's probably a better bet than taking Japan because you get better odds, and you would assume that he would win it. Now, Judge, of course, if USA wins it, is plus 650. And then it would be one of those guys, Tatis or Soto, probably to win if the Dominican Republic got to the end.
Right. And, I couldn't make the case for Yamamoto. He's probably not going to go more than 3 innings. He only pitched 2 in the opening start for them. But if Japan wins, it's probably going to be Ohtani. Now, I could make an argument for Bobby Witt potentially if he shows up with big defensive plays and a home run, right? He needs to add a home run just to at least have the counting stats to somewhat match or put him in the same conversation as Judge, because Judge already has the 2. If he adds another and USA wins, I think it'll be Judge.
Yeah, significant moves today, by the way, for Team USA. Clay Holmes has left, Michael Wacha, and some others being replaced by Ryan Yarbrough being replaced by relief pitchers for the next round of the WBC. All right, Tom, as we wrap things up, it seems like we're coming to the trickle end of NFL free agency. Of course, there's still going to be some signings and some trades, and we'll get Kyler Murray and Diggs, and some other names are going to end up with other teams, but I personally, I mean, it's been a very active and fun free agency, but I don't think the pendulum has changed at all. Like, I think Kenneth Walker signing with the Chiefs is a fun signing, but I don't think that any team like made this crazy move that changes their odds, and there's nothing on the board that I've seen that's changed significantly in the last 72 hours.
Yeah, I would say it's teams making signings to address the issues that they had. Teams bolstering their offensive line, teams improving their defense, but there's no premier caliber players that are truly out there anymore. Teams just don't like to let those players go to free agency. That's why so many of them get extensions, before it happens, and then they create cap space by restructuring. And so it's good to see teams make improvements, and we will see some teams jump into the playoffs next year, as who weren't in it this year. But to your point, the Chiefs will be back. Mahomes is starting in September. It's going to be them. We're going to have the same conversation. Oh, can the Bengals stay healthy? Can the Bengals have a competent defense? It's going to be them plus Baltimore. How are they going to operate with the new head coach?
Right.
We know the Chargers were there last year. Add in the Pats again. It's going to be the same grouping of teams. And then what do we get from the Houston, Denver, Jacksonville grouping?
So do you think that what the Raiders did has been, I know they had to give those picks back for Crosby, but I think they're going to end up getting those picks again from somebody else, whether it's now or at the draft. I mean, I think, Tom, it would be silly to believe that Crosby's going to play for the Raiders this season, regardless of what they're saying.
Yeah, I think it'll end up being a 1 and a 2 instead of a 1 and a 1 or 1 and a 3. But that's what I think he is deserving of getting. If you were just looking at the trade objective, a 1 and 1 is a lot, no doubt about it. Would certainly be up there as well. They're going to draft Mendoza 1. I think we all know that. They're going to draft some offensive linemen to protect him. They need to bring in a few more offensive options around him. But I think they end up trading Crosby. It won't be for the same price that they got from the Ravens, but it'll still be good.
Yeah, no, I think they'll do fine. It's just, highly unusual for a player to be traded and asked to come back, as if nothing's happened. Kind of funny that that's the narrative being pushed, but I would guess by maybe even Monday of next week, we'll have a trade again. All right, Tom, enjoy the World Baseball Classic games coming up this weekend. I know you're watching those closely too, and we'll be talking Major League Baseball soon with you coming up. So thanks again for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, we dive deeper into NFL free agency. Vinny Iyer has given out some grades on who did what in free agency, which teams succeeded, which teams failed thus far. Vinny from Sporting News is up next. You got off easy. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always fun to catch up with Vinny Iyer from Sporting News. We'll check back in with Vinny after today for the NFL draft coming up next month here. But as free agency comes to a close, which is what is so good about the NFL free agency and NBA free agency and hockey to a degree, is that you have a cap and teams got to spend. And if you don't, you're going to be left paying somebody you really don't want. So you get all these signings in the matter of 72 hours. Let's bring Vinny in to go over some grades, because it does appear, I mean, I don't know what percentage. I feel like 90% of the free agents are gone and signed. So that's good. Vinny, what is the top grade that you're giving out? Which team do you think did the best through free agency thus far?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of positives for the Chiefs. I know they moved their cornerbacks gone, but I think you look at this team, that's one position they've been able to replenish pretty well in the draft, get corners, and they had to save some money to spend in other places. Now they have the extra first-round draft pick. I'm not saying they're rebuilding, but they're a little bit tweaking and reloading a little bit. So they know they'll have Travis Kelce back. They added their running back that they desperately needed in Kenneth Walker. So that was a good pickup. And they got a couple underrated pickups there in Chloe Gilman, the safety, came over from the Ravens. He was an impact player. And then you also look at Kairos Tonga. He's a versatile guy that they could use at defensive tackle and fullback. So they are really about the draft and want to just know that they can get corners, they can get interior offensive linemen all the time in the draft. They proved it over and over again. So they're tweaking the impact players that they actually needed. So the Chiefs did pretty well. On the other side, the Rams did well. I mean, they had to shore up corner. They got the two Chiefs starting corners, and they kept Cam Curl for safety, so they're going to be good. And then the Bears, I still think they're working on trying to get this team upgraded here for Caleb Williams. So if you got the spending power, you've got a quarterback that you're trying to win for, such as Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, or Caleb Williams, different levels of contracts on each. You played that quarterback, and you're usually going to be successful in free agency.
Vinny, I think I have a good idea for a column for you, or maybe even a story, because this is my read on this. You know, you could certainly disagree, and I'm not trying to make you write something that's not accurate. But you know what it feels like to me, Vinny? It feels like the days of the NFL rebuilds are now 1 year and done. That's what it feels like to me. It's in the past when a team would go into a rebuild. I mean, like baseball and like the NBA, it was 2 years. Sometimes, you expected 3 years. And the Saints are a really good example of that. And I think maybe the Dolphins in 2 years will be an example of that. The Giants are a good example. Now they're back in. In the NFL, you can't take more than 1 year away from the fans, it seems like, anymore. The Saints did it last year. And now all of a sudden, they're right back in spending in free agency. Great signing for them, getting Travis Etienne. So they shore up the running back position, and they added other players as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to point to the Saints, the Giants, the Titans. These are those teams that you have expectations all of a sudden. Like, you were not good last year. Everyone's going to say, look at what the Seahawks did, what the Patriots did, what the Jaguars did, what the Bears did. The owners are going to be saying, why can't you do that, general manager and coach? Go out and get those guys. And the win now pressure is always on in the NFL because everyone's saying anybody has a shot. And we saw that. Anybody has a shot. If the two longest shots just made the Super Bowl, what's that going to do for the rest of the league? Everyone's going to be like, oh, we can be that team. If we spend in free agency wisely, if we have a good draft, we can be there. And the Saints are a great example. They feel very confident in Tyler Shuck. What do the other teams have in common? The Giants, Titans, second-year quarterbacks they believe in. Jackson Dart, Cam Ward. You got to attack while that rookie contract is in play because that's the best time where you can spend. That's your window for winning big. And that's what you're seeing with these teams. Like, hey, we don't have time to waste. We need to go do this right away. And then the flip side again, Rams are like, Matthew Stafford may not play for more than one more season. We got to go get some guys that can help us win now. I don't care what we give up in 26, 27, 28 in the draft. We need to get guys that can help us win now. And it's worked before for them. So you can't argue with that logic either.
Yeah, I mean, look at the division the Saints are in. I mean, it was kind of a disaster. 9 wins maybe gets you back in there. Speaking of that division, the Bucs take a big hit here. I know Mike Evans hasn't been 100% healthy the last few years, and he misses time here too. But Vinny, this to me was the biggest surprise of all. You're mean to tell me that the Bucs couldn't make Mike Evans a lifer there? wow, I guess he chased the money. I can't blame him. 60 million. I think the majority probably guaranteed of this too. At the end of his career, he's going to be chasing down Jerry Rice and a lot of other, Hall of Famers for numbers. He may not get to number one overall in all of them, but they throw so much in San Francisco. Great ad for the 49ers. I just am surprised here. I mean, this was a franchise player. I'm surprised to see him go.
Yeah, I think Mike Evans looked at the situation, and you look at the Buccaneers, they're developing a little bit of a crowd here at wide receiver. Chris Godwin and Joe McMillan were out there. The Mecca Buka, they brought back their tight end, K. Dot. And when you look at the 49ers, Juwan Jennings is not going to return. Brandon Ayuk is not going to return. George Kittle is coming off Achilles injury. He probably saw, where can I thrive and be what I was personally and go win big? And I think that was a combination of things that lured him away. And I think he wanted to explore that and the possibility, and maybe it's not a good sign that he doesn't feel like the Bucs were a team to contend and do something, but the 49ers, who have been depleted, working their defense, was more appealing. But I think he's a great fit for the 49ers. Big play receiver. He's going to be dominant in the red zone, playing off Christian McCaffrey and Kittle when all those guys are on the field together. Good luck. Another field stretcher for Purdy, who's one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL.
All right, finally, let's get to the little bizarre offseason the Colts are having here. They give a lot of money to Alec Pierce and a lot of money to Daniel Jones, and this is a team that didn't even make the playoffs last year. I mean, if there's ever a lock in the draft coming up, it's the Colts taking a wide receiver, right, Vinny? First round, best receiver on the board. What is Indianapolis doing? I know they have a great running game, and they played great while they had Daniel Jones last year, but if I'm not mistaken, the end of their season ended with a quarterback that basically pushing our age here.
Yeah, I mean, the Achilles injury, I mean, you can't just assume he's going to come back as strong with Daniel Jones. You still paid him a reasonable amount of money. And then Alec Pierce, they paid him like a number one wide receiver while you said goodbye to your true number one wide receiver, Michael Pittman. So there's going to be a lot of question if the Colts don't win. I think this is it for Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard if that team does not make the playoffs after spending this much money.
I mean, 15 coaches, it felt like we're fired. Yes, Steichen's on the hot seat. Thanks, Vinny. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
like to sort of reminisce here as we get ready to wrap up the show on what the top stories of the day are, because generally that's what we try to do here for you on the show. Of course, World Baseball Classic going on. I think that's a big part of it. But I genuinely think that Colin Morikawa not playing in the Players' Championship is going to open up the field for a lot of others. Now, he was not the favorite going in. That, of course, was Scotty Scheffler, and then Rory McIlroy was right there. But so was Morikawa. So with him being out, maybe the Players' Championship gets somebody we don't expect this weekend. We'll see, and of course, recap it for you here on Monday's edition of NewsWire. As we take our little vignette here for Last Licks, we're going to go over Bam Adebayo and what the Miami Heat are trying to do to market the fact that he had 83 points. Also, we're going to talk a little Team Italy, and would you believe it's another U.S.-Canada showdown as we wrap up, as I said, with some Last Licks. All right, $13 tickets. That's what you can do tonight. Actually, I believe my son is going to this game tonight. Bam Adebayo had 83 points, of course, in their last game for the Miami Heat. The Heat is celebrating with this. $13 tickets tonight for number 13. Bam Adebayo wears number 13. They play, by the way, the Milwaukee Bucks this evening. I believe Giannis is supposed to play in this game. There's one little caveat for those of you who live in South Florida and are watching the show, maybe because of me, because I live in South Florida too. 8 tickets per person. That's the max. And by the way, these tickets are in the 400 level, which is really high up at the Kaseya Center. I'm just being honest with you. It's not a bad idea. It's a little good marketing piece. I think if I'm not mistaken, they're also they've already produced Adebayo jerseys with the number 83 on it. That's a really good idea too. But for that, you got to pay like $100, I'm going to guess, for an NBA jersey. But Adebayo, one of the greatest games in the history of the NBA. I mean, who in the world would have ever thought that? 40 free throws too in that game. Crazy. Okay, so how has Team Italy reached the quarterfinals of the World Baseball Classic? This is a major upset. So you can say that it was because of Vinny Pasquantino hitting 3 home runs. Yes, like that's part of it. He has led Team Italy. Maybe you could say the manager has been great. Francisco Cervelli's done the best job of any manager in the WBC. You could say that too. I tend to believe it's because of what they have in the dugout. Team Italy has an espresso machine in the dugout. We know that. Every time someone hits a home run, their jersey number gets added to the machine. And so they have really embraced this coffee goes with home runs sort of thing. And I'm so happy, by the way, for a team like Italy that went into the WBC that had no shot whatsoever to even get to this point. Look, they certainly can move on and they can get to the next round. For them to even be thinking about winning the championship is just kind of crazy, only having 3 or 4 big league players on their team. But absolutely congrats to them and the espresso machine, because that has carried them all the way thus far. And we'll see if they win the next one, and then they get to play either Canada, US, or someone else in Miami coming up. All right, finally, here we go. USA against Canada again. And this time it's in the World Baseball Classic. They faced off, of course, on the ice, on the men's side, on the women's side, and now they face off in the quarterfinals of the World Baseball Classic. They'll play this game in Houston coming up tomorrow night, and if they win, then they'll end up playing in the semifinals in Miami. But here's the thing. I mean, USA, on paper, should be crushing Canada this weekend, but they have not looked great throughout. I think the U.S. is going to win, but just like I said when they played Italy the other night, it would not surprise me to see them get knocked out. I'll say this for Team USA. If they win this one, I think they're going to win Sunday night with Paul Skeens pitching. He's that kind of pitcher. He's unhittable virtually in the major leagues. He'll be unhittable at the World Baseball Classic, but I think the Canada one is the dicey one for them. And then who knows what happens in the championship. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Thanks to our great guest, Rob Donaldson, for coming on the show. Also, thanks to Vinny Iyer for coming on the program, courtesy of Sporting News. And also thanks to our buddy Tom Vecchio, who does a great job hosting some of our baseball programming and also appears on all of our programming as well here on SportsGrid. Also, one quick programming reminder. I'm off tomorrow So my buddy Adam Kaufman will be hosting the show for me tomorrow from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. And then I will see you either Sunday morning for Pro Baseball Today, new show that we got going on here that I'm part of, or I'll see you Monday for our next edition of NewsWire. So thanks again to our director, Tommy, and for our producer, Chris, and for all the work that Frank is doing on the show as well. Appreciate him too. I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I'll see you for our next edition of NewsWire Monday. Adam Kaufman, though, in tomorrow. Have a great one.